Mike, firstly, how's the roster? Everybody okay? Any problems?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of niggles, which we've had to be a little bit cautious with today, and we'll see how they are tomorrow. But in terms of the group, the group are okay. You know, we're fully prepared for the weekend. We've obviously got tomorrow to do a little bit extra in terms of final preparations, but we know the game on Saturday is going to be a completely different type of game, and we've got to be fully prepared for that.
You spoke the other week about Dennis Cirkin and Corey Evans and maybe trying to get them a bit of game time before the end of the season. Is this weekend too soon for either of them?
It would definitely be too soon for Dennis. I've had a conversation with Dennis this morning, so he part trained with the group. And obviously Dennis is really keen to be back amongst the squad and try and get involved in some of the games. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to be the voice of reason for him because he's had a significant amount of time off. We would want to try and get him on the pitch before the summer, but I think we're just going to have to take it week by week with Dennis. Obviously, Corey had a week where he had a little bit of a flare-up with his groin, so he had a couple of days where he just kind of took him off his feet a little bit, but he's been training this week with the group, so if not this weekend, definitely the following weekend, providing everything goes alright for Corey.
You spoke after Leeds and after West Brom about the areas you were happy with, the areas you weren't happy with, and out of possession you were pleased with, but both games you said it was in possession that you were concerned. Have you been able to sort of work on that to your satisfaction? I guess in one sense you won't know until you see the game.
Yeah, look, we won't know until the game kind of unfolds on Saturday, but I've been happy for a number of weeks, not just the two games. I think the two games have just highlighted our progress out of possession, which I've been really pleased with. But I was pleased with previous games before that, without naming in particular games. I think my disappointment with those games, the last two in particular, were when we did get the ball into positive areas of the pitch, I thought we didn't execute. And I think in those types of games, when you come up against two of the stronger teams in the league in terms of position in the league, you can't turn down those opportunities. So that was my disappointment from those two games. I don't want to overemphasise the out of possession stuff, the in possession stuff, because I felt against Bristol City in particular, the first half, I thought our in possession stuff was outstanding. I felt the game should have been out of sight, and that was obviously the game prior to the last two games. So it's not like I don't want to make a matter out of a molehill, but I think those two games I'm always really critical of myself first as a coach, and then I'll be critical of the group. I just felt the game at Leeds was there for the taking for us if we were a little bit better with the ball. I felt, having watched the West Brom game back, we were really professional, and it would have been easy when a team goes down to 10 men to abandon the principles, and I don't think they did. But at the same time, I just wanted to be a little bit more free-flowing, obviously, when you have a man advantage, and that didn't quite happen for us. But look, I think there's lots of positives around the group. I think it's taken us a while to kind of change the kind of direction of the group, and I feel like we're going in the right direction now.
And one of the other areas where you must be pleased with the fact you're keeping clean sheets. I know there's the anomaly of the Blackburn game, but that aside, this division is cutthroat. It's not easy to have a run of games where you aren't conceding goals.
Yeah, and that was one of the things we spoke about as a group when I took over a few months ago. Was there was a number of areas I felt we needed to focus on. Set pieces, I felt for the last 5 or 6 games our defensive setup from set pieces has been really, really good, and that's going to have to be the case on Saturday because they are such a threat from set pieces. But I think our previous games, our kind of defending set pieces have been better. Obviously we scored from a set piece at the weekend, so that was one area just in terms of dead balls that we wanted to address. I wanted us to be harder to play against, and it's probably taken us a little bit longer than what I would have liked. But saying that, we only conceded 1 goal against Leicester, and there was 1 goal against Norwich. They're teams that are in the top 6, so there were signs of being better out of possession. I would have liked to have seen the group score more goals, but I think having some of our attacking options for the first part of this period that I've taken over was always going to be difficult. But yeah, like I said, I think there's signs of what I think the group is capable of. I think there's some more positivity around, in particular, the clean sheets. And I think if you're a group, whether it be Sunderland Football Club, whether it be any other football club, if you can keep clean sheets as your kind of foundations, you give yourself a real strong platform to be successful. So that's something for the next 3 games that we'll be looking to build upon.
You touched on Millwall. Neil Harris has gone back there, and there's been a quite dramatic turnaround in results. He's in many ways Mr. Millwall, and he's probably bucked a trend in football, playing 4-4-2 as well, which seems to be a formation that seems, in inverted commas, old-fashioned now. Teams don't seem to play that, but clearly for him it's working very, very well.
Yeah, and I've got a lot of admiration for the job that he's done in a short period of time. Obviously they wanted to go in a slightly different direction. Obviously they went from Gary to Joe, and I don't know Joe, but Joe has a similar type of background to myself, and it didn't quite work out for him. I genuinely feel sometimes you have good fits and bad fits, whether it be head coach or managers at certain football clubs, and I think Millwall would probably highlight that in terms of going from someone that is well respected in the game in terms of a coach in Joe Edwards, and then obviously then appointing Neil after Joe, who would be very different in terms of the way they approach the game, but Neil's done extremely well in terms of getting the absolute maximum out of what he's got at his disposal. Really well organised, in particular out of possession, like you said, 4-4-2. Transitions, they're a real threat on transition. A lot of their goals since Neil's come in have been via transitions, and as always, they're always a threat from set pieces, Millwall teams. So he's got them really, really well organised, which gives them, again, like I said previously, it gives you a really strong foundation in the games. And he's got 2 real obvious threats in terms of set pieces and transition. So results have picked up for them. It's going to be a really difficult game, and we're going to have to make sure we manage all those bits, in particular out of possession. If we do that and we're better with the ball, we give ourselves a chance of doing okay in the game.
We mentioned West Brom last week, 2 former Sunderland players, and you didn't expect them to play. There's 2 more former Sunderland players at Millwall. George Honeyman may or may not, because he has a shoulder injury, he's desperate to play. Duncan Watmore. I mean, are you a believer as a coach sometimes, the psychology that players who play up against their former clubs do seem to somehow do well, and it's sort of, sometimes it might be anecdotal, but to put them in the team sort of sends a message in some sense?
Yeah, in some cases, I do think when you play against a former team, you do somehow, players, they find an extra 5-10% because they want to do well. Both players, I think, suit Millwall in terms of, I think they're really industrious. I think they will leave everything on the pitch. So they're a good fit for that football club. But one thing I do know is, whatever team they do pick, they're going to be really, really hard working. They're going to be really hard to play against, and they will embody all the principles I'm sure the head coach wants to imprint on the team. So whoever they pick, we know what's going to come. Cheers.
Mike, you've hit the point in the season where there's players on loan, there's players out of contracts. Are you now solely picking teams on the basis of winning the games in front of you, or does part of you now look at the selection and think, well, it might be better for the long term of the football club to pick this guy for the next couple of games rather than this guy?
Yeah, a bit of both, if I'm honest. I don't want to sit on the fence when you ask me that question. It is a little bit of both. I've said in previous weeks, this is a massive football club, and what I'm not going to do is use these games to experiment. But at the same time, we do have to build game on game, week on week to get us back to where we want to be. So the games are not going to be throwaway games, but there is one eye on the next kind of 12-18 months. So it is a balance. As the head coach, I want to win every game of football, so that will be your first and foremost priority. And then from there, it's whether we need to change a shape, whether it's can we give player X an opportunity, and then we make the decision from there. But any decision that is made around picking a team is like I've always said, it's not a 5-minute decision. It's discussed amongst the staff. It's hours and hours of watching the opposition, watching our previous games, things we've done well, things we haven't done particularly well. So those decisions are made over a long period of time.
Just giving you one from me, obviously to the final 3 at home. It's been a couple of months since a home win. How much of a motivation is it for everybody to give those home fans a good send-off?
Definitely, 100%. I think I was disappointed for the group and for the fans against Bristol because we were more than deserved winners, and I thought their goalkeeper was just in unbelievable form. So the last kind of performance I was really, really happy with at home, and I think if we replicate that in terms of energy, enthusiasm and the things that we want to execute in the game, we give ourselves a real opportunity. But like always, whether it's home or away, we want to try and win every game of football, and in particular at home, knowing that we've got a huge following that are going to come and watch kind of the next 2 games. We want to make sure they go away with the summer with some positivity.
Hi Mike, are you setting any targets for the players for this last few games? Are you trying to get top half, or is it just a case of wanting to, answering for you here, wanting to win all 3?
Look, we want to win all 3, but there has been some discussions around targets internally, whether that be individual, whether that be units, whether that be the kind of collective group. But we have set some targets for the group, but ultimately it's trying to win every game of football, and I don't think that should ever change, regardless of whether we're playing Leeds at Ellen Road or we're playing Millwall at the Stadium of Light. 2 completely different games, but one mentality, which is to try and take all 3 points.
Can you give us an idea of what those targets are without being too specific and identifying?
Well, unit specific, with a back 4, keep clean sheets, front half of the pitch players score and assist. Midfield players connect the front half of the pitch and the back half of the pitch and do their responsibility properly. I think in particular for the midfield players, the second ball game on Saturday is going to be hugely important. I think if they win that battle in midfield, they'll give us a really strong opportunity to win the game. So some unit specific stuff, some individual stuff which I think is private to the individuals, and then in terms of the group, we're looking for maximum points for the next 3 games.
You said back 4 then, are we thinking we might go back to a back 4, or is it looking at 3 at the backs work quite well?
Did I say back 4, did I?
You did.
Slip of the tongue. Potentially. The back 5 has served us really well over the last few games. I think what it does do is it allows us to absorb not so much pressure, but absorb forward passes, which could be something that is really important in this game. Millwall will play a lot of forward passes, so a back 5 will be beneficial to that. But then also a back 4 allows you to get another attacking option on the pitch. So it's a decision for us to make as staff whether we go 4 or 5 based on whether we want to absorb their forward passes or whether we want to put an extra body on the pitch and try and put their back 4 under a little bit more pressure.
And what's the latest on Rusin? Are we going to see him again?
Potentially. I think it will be touch and go at the moment. He's part training with the group at the moment. I think the reality is this game and the next game probably will be a little bit too close. Sheffield Wednesday, potentially, depending on how his body reacts, will probably be more realistic.
All right, thanks, Mark.
Cheers.
Mike, from your perspective and taking into account all the roles you fulfilled at the football club this season, how would you summarise the campaign?
In terms of me and my role, or just in general?
A bit of both.
In general, probably a tinge of disappointment. Obviously we set out as a collective to try and replicate or improve on last season. That hasn't happened. I do feel we've had probably a lot more injuries and suspensions in crucial moments of the season this year, which hasn't helped us, which will be a reflection point for all of us, myself and the people around me. From my perspective, I think the first kind of spell that I took the team, look, the reality is no one wants to take interim charge twice in one season. But the first time that obviously I took the group, I felt the transition was a lot easier for everyone, and it was a lot easier for me in terms of obviously working with Tony so closely in terms of the match preparation, stuff like that, and then just putting my own kind of stamp on the group for that short period of time was a lot easier than the second time round. The second time round was a lot more difficult for reasons that I don't feel appropriate to go into, but I think the group now are in a spot where I'm happy where they're at. In particular, out of possession, I think we're a really, really hard team to play against at the moment. I would like us to create more chances, and that's something we've discussed in the last couple of weeks. There's a tinge of disappointment from my point of view. If I had probably 4 or 5 more games, it would be interesting to see where, what points we pick up, because I do generally feel the group's in a spot where where touchwood we're going to do quite well over the next 3 games, but that'll be down to their mentality, and we spoke about that this morning in terms of, I think the next 3 games are going to be hugely based on the players' mentality and how they approach the games, because I think we've shown in recent weeks that we can execute the kind of tactical aspects of the game. So yeah, I don't know if I've kind of answered the question to the level that you want there. I think there's some positives. There's clearly some stuff that hasn't gone the way we want it to go. Obviously next year is going to be a really, really big year for everyone, including the football club, to make sure that we challenge the top 6 a lot more than we have done this season.
And so just bridging on that, how would you like the summer to look at the club to give the team the best chance of making next season as successful as possible?
Keep hold of our best players, recruit some more players, have a little bit more depth in a lot of the key areas of the football club. I'm sure they're priorities for everyone involved at the football club. Having a really good pre-season. We've got 6 or 7 weeks where I know we're going over to Spain, which everyone's looking forward to. Making sure that we have a really, really strong pre-season. I think, and obviously the new head coach will be an important addition to the summer as well.